Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about VIN 0749. This is one that just popped up on Auto Trader, and it is for sale in Pennsylvania, a one-owner, no accidents car with 10,000 miles on it and $70,000. Pretty high ask, but let's dig into it and see what we find out. This is a 2016 Caviar, paint code 223, with LA30 interior, which is the red interior with the standard carbon fiber trim. It looks extremely clean. It looks like it has a couple little cosmetic mods, and we'll get into that in a minute. Production, this was you've heard me talk about 54% of these cars were either black or white, and so there's no exception here. Another black car. 446 out of the 2,347 produced for the US 49, so that's everywhere except Hawaii, were Caviar, paint code 223. Of those 446, 201 had the LA30 interior. 2016 specifically, 284 out of the 1,417 for 2016 were Caviar. Of those 284, 127 had LA30 interior. So this car is one of 127. Definitely on the more common side of combinations that you see, but there's not too many left that only have 10,000 miles on them. Carfax, Epic VIN, and AutoCheck. Carfax, one owner, no accidents. Epic VIN, one owner, no accidents. And AutoCheck, one owner, no accidents. A lot of green flags so far. Previous sales, August 22nd, 2016 is when it first went on sale in New Jersey for $88,000. It was still for sale a month later, but then it looks like it was first registered in August of 2016, so it was for sale for around 6 months. And you've heard me talk about before, these cars didn't sell very quick or very well when they were brand new. That's hence why the production numbers are pretty poor. But this car sold in 6 months. It wasn't one of them that sat around for a year and a half or 2 years, but 6 months. So now let's move on to looking at the pictures. The first thing that I notice in the pictures was that the tires, they look original, but B, they have a 2016 manufacture date. And if you don't know how to tell the date codes on tires, there's a 4-digit code that you'll see stamped on the side of the tire, and it'll have like 2816. That's the 28th week of 2016 is when they were produced. You usually don't want to go longer than probably 7-ish years. I think that's what a lot of the tire companies will tell you. Of course, they want to sell you tires. But depending on the climate and things like that, sometimes they can dry rot quicker or longer than that. But this car has 9-year-old tires. And so if you're going to do any kind of significant driving, I would highly recommend replacing the tires on it. So that's another $1,500, or depending on what kind of tires you put on, $1,500 to $2,000 installed for a set of 4 tires. So I just see a couple cosmetic mods, some aero stuff, carbon fiber in the interior, and that's really it. It's just cosmetic. I don't see anything, crazy modifications, no superchargers or anything like that. So again, everything so far, green flags. Next is the service history, so let's take a look at that. November of 2016, the front right wheel was repaired due to curb rash, but then they say it can't be repaired due to the chrome on the wheel. And I think they're talking about the polished. These are polished and painted and then cleared. They're not simple to repair, and I've learned that getting them refinished on mine. The company that refinishes my wheels, they typically charge like $110 a wheel. For these, they charged $180 a wheel because there was more labor involved. Not only did they strip them, they painted them, they polished them, and then they cleared them. There's a lot to it. And at the same time, they also swapped pads because they were noisy. And so that's another common issue you saw in these cars early on in their lives, is they had noisy pads, they had noisy brakes, and there was an updated compound or something that Brembo produced that was quieter. And so that's what they did here. There's no cause for concern regarding any of this. April of 2018, 4,200 miles, reports a tire leaking from the bead after getting the right rear wheel refinished. And they also did the JLB fuel pump recall, which is the high pressure fuel pump recall, so that's done. They also noted that it had an aftermarket steering wheel. That is the last Lexus service. So this car has not been inside a Lexus dealer in 7 years. It does have service that's on the Carfax. You can see right here, 2020 and 2024, it looks like it had some oil changes. So most recently, 2024. What else? You know, things that I did not see on the service history. It's most of the common issues that these cars have. None of them have been addressed or talked about in the service history, and that's the low pressure fuel pump buzzing, the KLG, which is the GPS showing in the wrong position, the ZLZ, which is the dash delaminating or sticky or cracking or anything like that. None of those have been done on this. Carbon fiber trim, none of those have been addressed. But looking at the pictures, again, it only has 10,000 miles. I wouldn't expect that unless it's been in any kind of harsh environment, and obviously looks like it has not. The carbon fiber on it is likely original on the interior trim, but the other things, the usual, check out the control arms, the front control arm bushings, check out the coolant valley plate, get a mechanical inspection, things along those lines. I would probably recommend doing a belt and maybe hoses, maybe not yet, but at least the belt and the fluids. Getting the transmission fluid, the differential fluid done. They're coming up on almost 10 years old sitting in that car. So that is definitely something, you know, it's unique to low mile vehicles like this that are almost 10 years old, and they just sit, they've done a lot of sitting, and hopefully no bad fuel or anything like that has been the case. They drive it regularly, start it up, things like that. I would say if you're gonna look at this car, you're definitely gonna have to put a little bit more money into it on top of the already pretty high premium that the owner is asking. Now, let's get into prices. $70,000 for this car. There is one that's been on and off of Auto Trader that you've heard me review about a week ago, and it's a car that originally was asking $75,000, and it's down to, I think, 68 now, and it has 24,000 miles. Now, the cars that sell around $70,000 are exactly like this car, where it's low miles, just ultra primo, and the mods are reversible. So if it's somebody that wants to put it in a collection or something like that, keep the miles low, keep it looking pristine, then it's doable. It's not like, you know, where you're drilling holes into the side of it for a spoiler or something like, you know, it doesn't look like that's the case here. So everything appears to be reversible if it's going to be for a collector. Now, $70,000, I think if he gets it, more power to him. The market's kind of weird on these super low mile cars. With the low mile cars, there's so few of them out there. There's so few of them left. You know, out of the 2,347 cars, you're talking about maybe a dozen that have this low of miles, and one owner, no accident, even rarer. And I've talked about that in some of my production videos, where one owner, no accident cars, less than 10% of these exist still here in August 2025 as one owner, no accident cars. There are so few of them. So yes, the next owner is going to be the second owner, but it's only original. It's only one owner once. And this car, I think that if there's a buyer for it, I think he'll get it, but I don't see it like absurdly high priced, because it is in line with some of the other sales or close to it. You know, I would think if it had like 30,000 miles, something like that, maybe it's in the low 60s, mid 60s, something like that. 70 grand, you're asking top price for it. So you have to have tremendously clear photos showing exactly everything, squeaky clean service history, and it does, but it doesn't have a lot done. So as I said, you're gonna probably have to put some money into this in the future, especially if you're going to drive it regularly. I would expect coolant valley plates and, you know, fluids and tires and lower control arm bushings, carbon fiber. There's a lot of potentials in the future that may present itself owning this car, depending on how you drive it. If you're just gonna store it in a collection, store it and put it away. But if you're gonna drive it, you're gonna have to put some more money into it. And so your $70,000 can quickly become $74,000, $75,000 plus tax, title, license, all of that. You're up, you know, near $80,000 for this car now. And then I guess another thing that comes into play is if you are going to drive it and put the miles on it, the value is going to go down really quick. And you know, these cars, 60,000 miles, it's a $50,000 car. So if you drive it for a year and a half or 2 years and you put 20, 30 more thousand miles on it, well, Scott can't do math. You put 40,000 miles on this car, 20,000 miles a year on it, then you've already lost $20,000 just because you wanted to put miles on an already low mile car. So you're putting a pretty significant premium on this car because it has low mile, one owner, no accidents, very clean. And that's one of those things where, you know, how bad do you want it? I think that this car will probably find a buyer, but I would expect it to sit for a little bit. I don't think it's going to sell super fast, but I could be wrong. There is a but for every seat, and if somebody wants it bad enough, there's not a lot of these left that have 10,000 miles, one owner, no accident. So I would go check it out, guys. If it's something you're considering, if you have the means, by all means, go check this one out. Just know going into it, there may be some more money you got to spend on it. So that is VIN 749. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.